Hello, I'm Kristen Anderson and welcome to Most Amazing Woman. Today we are talking to Jacquline about her healing journey back to self. Hello, Jacquline.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Good morning. So you had breast implants.
Yes.
And what made you decide to get them? How were you feeling about yourself when you decided to get breast implants?
Yeah, it was after having had 2 children and breastfeeding them for a total of about 3 years. And I was left with really deflated breasts that were uneven and long. And so I would honestly say I did not feel like an attractive woman to myself. And that started my plastic surgery journey. It wasn't just my breast implants, it was a tummy tuck as well as a Brazilian butt lift. So I had a whole mommy makeover procedure. I think I was just feeling really low about myself. I had lost a lot of weight, and the more weight I lost, the more excess skin I had pretty much all over my stomach and my breasts, and I just really wanted to correct that. So that was what my journey became, looking for the right plastic surgeon to fix me.
So I think you kind of covered the second question, which is how did you feel before the surgery? How did you feel about yourself?
Unattractive.
Unattractive.
Really unattractive. I was extremely uncomfortable with my body. Like I said, the more weight I lost at the time, the looser the skin got and the more it hung. And so I was really uncomfortable with what I was seeing in the mirror. It really frustrated me when I was putting on pants. And at the time I was like a size 7, and I'd have to get a pair of pants that were an extra size to tuck the skin in, or wearing a bra. There was not a bra that I could fill in. A push-up bra didn't work because the skin was so stretched and so saggy that it essentially slid under the bra. And for me, it was a really crappy feeling, for lack of a better term. I was really insecure about the way I was looking. And so that led me to want to change myself.
So how did you feel after your plastic surgery?
I remember waking up from plastic surgery and looking down and thinking, what did I do to myself? That was my initial thought. There was no sense of, oh my God, I'm so excited. I was not thrilled. I had gone into plastic surgery or my mommy makeover 100% certain that I was not getting actual implants. I was going to just have a breast lift and maybe a fat transfer to my breasts, but that I was not going to have implants. And it wasn't until I was actually getting marked for surgery that my doctor recommended I get the implants, because if I just had a lift, my breasts would be so small that I would be unproportionate. That I had very curvy hips, a small waist, and I was gonna have super small breasts, and he felt like that wouldn't be aesthetically pleasing and recommended implants right there on the spot. So in the actual marking of my body before going into surgery, that's when I agreed to implants. I felt a little bit under pressure, but I must have felt so insecure that it just took a small word to encourage me to actually go against what my original beliefs were and then get the implants. So I never discussed a size. I never knew what implants I was getting. I never knew how big they were going to be. I specifically said I wanted small breasts. I wasn't looking to be gigantic. I was very comfortable with having small breasts and a curvier body. I was totally okay with that. So when I woke up and looked down and saw what to me were these gigantic breasts, I was not thrilled.
Wow, okay. I really thought that when we got to this question that you were gonna be like, oh, it felt great.
No.
And I looked great.
No.
And I was so happy that I did it. Wow.
Yeah,
wow.
I can be really honest with you. Throughout my journey, I tried to convince myself. I had my implants in for 5 years. I really tried to be okay with what I did by convincing myself that at least in clothes and a good bra, that my silhouette was great and that I looked good. But the reality was, I traded one severe insecurity of loose skin and really saggy breasts and uneven nipples and whatever I couldn't find my worth in with what I had to, I looked like Frankenstein. I didn't heal well. I had breasts that were far too large for me, in my opinion. Just in case anybody wants to know, I had 275cc implants that were silicone, smooth, whatever it is, however that goes, smooth implants. And that's not that big in the surgery world, but for me, they were obnoxious and in the way.
So as like a cup size, because I think most women can relate to a cup size, like what was your cup size?
I went from a B to a triple D.
Oh.
So that's what I'm saying. In the surgery world, 275 cc's is not that big. It's really not. It's actually quite a small implant. Most women go for like 4, 5, 450, 500 cc's. Wow. Mine were really small, but in my body, and then I started to gain weight, they were enormous.
Wow.
Yeah, for me, they were enormous.
Wow, so, right. It's because then you had the breast implant, and then you were gaining weight, and so then they were even bigger.
Yeah, so they were big to start with. They were super, super high up. I just remember thinking, these are ridiculous. Eventually they did settle over time, but still. Ultimately, I was just trying to convince myself, back to what you were saying, that I looked good, but the reality was I traded my stretchy skin insecurity for how I healed which was completely, I looked like Frankenstein. So the procedure that I had to have was a full anchor breast lift, which means I had cut around the areola, a line straight down, and what looks like an anchor underneath in order to remove all the excess skin, and then sewn back together. Now, I'm in skincare and I'm used to making the face look great, and I concentrate on the skin of the face. And nowhere in my own profession, nowhere in the surgery world, no advice from the doctor prepared me for how poorly I would heal. Nobody recommended conditioning my skin prior to getting implants so that I could have the potential to heal better. I'm Middle Eastern and Hispanic, and what happened to me was that almost my entire scar, the entire anchor, straight line, and around the entire areola had a really thick keloid all around it. So essentially, if I didn't wear a good shelled bra, and the bra material was too thin, you could see what looked like thick circles all around my areola. And then if I wore a bikini, I had keloids that were as thick as my pinky, that started from the anchor going all the way down. So to say that I felt good about the decision I made, no, there was never a time I felt good about it. Not only did I not feel good about it health-wise, I didn't feel good about it emotionally, psychologically. It gave me a whole new set of insecurities because of how poorly I healed.
Wow, okay, that's a lot. Let's for a second go back to your body being marked up for surgery. And the doctor, who was a man, recommending this to you to make your body more aesthetically pleasing. How do you feel about that now? How do you feel about this doctor?
I cannot blame him. And so yes, he was a man that did this, but I would tell you that there are female doctors that do the same. They have an aesthetic idea of what their patient should look like. And I did have a female that was very close to me, that was there with me, that also encouraged it. It's not her fault, but essentially it was like the last push I needed to agree to it, basically saying that you're here once, you're gonna do this once in your life, like just get it all done, like look good. I have, thanks to my mom's genetics, like a smaller waist and a curvier, like hippie bottom, so that when he was marking me up, he actually thought I had already had plastic surgery. And who did my hips? no, I just have very wide hips. That's just how it's always been.
That's funny.
And so the suggestion was to make sure that I balanced it out with breasts.
Wow.
But I think I'm not mad at him. I can't be mad at him. The person that made the ultimate decision was me. I didn't stick to my own guns. Anybody could have said anything. I could have stuck with my own decision, but I chose not to.
Okay, so what led you to the decision to remove the implants? And what about the rest of the surgeries, and how do you feel about those? But let's just take those one at a time.
Yeah.
So how do you feel, what led you to removal?
So what led me to removal? I would say within the first 6 months, my body was rejecting my implants, not in the sense that it was physically trying to push them out, but I started going through a lot of health changes it was really quick, and I tried to excuse every single one of them by being a business owner, a single mother that was running around with her children nonstop, an employee of my business. I tried to excuse every symptom that suddenly came up with something that I don't get enough rest, I'm super stressed out, like all these different things. But essentially what was happening right away was I started getting severe vertigo. I started gaining weight immediately. I essentially had a disconnection from self. I feel like I had never suffered true depression until a few months after receiving my implants. I started becoming extremely forgetful. I started losing a little bit of hearing in my right ear. It became difficult for me to recall words. It got to the point where my kids were actually making fun of me, like, don't tell mommy anything because she's not going to remember anyway. I would go to work. I owned a skincare practice. I would take a lunch break and forget to go back to work. I literally had clients like, what are you doing? Where are you at? I'm here.
Wow.
There were so many things. I started getting severe gastrointestinal issues, severe joint pain. The list goes on and on and on. But the true point where I could no longer dismiss my symptoms, and this is going to sound so vain, it was my 40th birthday. I got my breast implants as an early 40th birthday. I was 38 years old. I was very in touch and in tune with my body, my cycle. You're 38. I mean, if you pay attention, you know your body really well by then. On my 40th birthday, I was taking a shower, and the amount of hair that was coming out was unreal. I started going bald. And so for me, me, that was like the final straw. I didn't want to go bald. So I really started researching breast implants. I had researched a little bit about it. It was kind of why I didn't want to get breast implants. But when I started researching and joining groups, I couldn't deny the same thing that was happening to me. I was in a group of 150,000 women that all these symptoms were happening to them almost immediately after getting implants. So for me, about almost 2 years after I got them, I was going bald. Wow.
Just for anyone watching, what is the name of the group? And we'll put the link down in the notes for anyone who wants to join.
Breast implant illness. I'd have to look it up and tell you. I don't remember. It's a Facebook group.
Okay, we'll put it in the notes.
Yeah. So I'd look it up.
Wow. So you were losing hair.
That was it for me. I didn't want to be
final straw.
Yeah, I didn't want to be bald. So that was almost
crazy.
Isn't it crazy?
Yeah, that's crazy. I'm
my
blown
looks.
away though by the amount of symptoms that you were experiencing.
So yeah, and then I was in denial and trying to explain away.
You were.
So muscle weakness is another one. Chronic fatigue. I was short of breath. I couldn't take a walk. I couldn't walk my dog without being short of breath. It almost seemed like I had asthma out of nowhere. So I had my implants under the muscle. I later on discovered that my implants adhered to the thin membrane that separates our ribs from our lungs. So my implants created scar tissue that were so adhered that they didn't move anymore, and so taking a deep breath was extremely difficult. Used to be a really active mom, and it slowed me down. I used to hike, I could barely walk.
Wow.
Recovery from any physical exertion was next to impossible. Severe insomnia too, that was another big thing for me. I had never suffered from insomnia until having them again. So all these things I was trying to tell myself, it's because I'm getting older, it's because of this, it's because of that. When I joined this group, almost all of us had the same exact symptoms.
Wow.
And to be clear, throughout this entire time, I was changing my diet, I was cleansing my diet, I was getting infusions and injections and all these different things and taking supplements left and right.
What were the infusions and injections, like
So
vitamins?
I was getting iron infusions because I became severely anemic. I had the lowest ferritin count in 2 practices that they had ever seen. They didn't know how I was functioning and walking. I was going bald, like you know. I had severe thyroid issues that really manifested out of nowhere. Yeah, it was definitely, I was getting vitamin C injections. There's I can't remember exactly what they were, but essentially like a pack of different vitamins infused into me, as well as iron infusions, and I was getting these on a weekly basis, and I would only feel good for about 24 to 48 hours and go right back to how I was feeling. This was going on for a period of like 2 years.
Wow.
So to be honest, when I discovered almost 2 years later that this is really what it is, for 1 year I essentially slept on it. I wanted to pretend that I would get better and this would just go away, but it didn't. And then after that 3rd year, I started researching doctors, and I finally, a year into it, decided on the doctor that I was going to use. This was a doctor that believed in breast implant illness. He only performed breast explants. He had stopped doing implants, and I looked at his work, and so I already had a breast lift. I was freaking out that I was going to have a second breast lift. I already lost another symptom, but another outcome of having breast augmentation and a lift was I 100% lost all sensation in my breasts. So just woman to woman, right? I tried to make myself feel and look better so I could be more of a woman, and I lost every part of me that made me feel like a woman, whether it was sensation or look or confidence. It took everything away from me. Now I recognize that this is not everybody's story, but it is so much more common than anybody will ever make you think.
Wow, I'm blown away right now. Okay. Wow, so let's talk about more on the removal. So you chose your doctor, and then you scheduled, and this is 3 years? How many years after? So you spent 3 years in denial and 1 year researching
2 years in total denial.
2 years in denial.
Pretending that now that I've known it'll just get better on its own because I'm doing all these things to combat it. I'm on a ton of supplements.
Okay.
I'm going to naturopathic and holistic doctors. I'm going and getting infusions once a week.
So there was 1 year of that.
So that actually lasted for 2 years.
2 years. So
Yeah.
2 years in straight denial.
2 years,
2 years
pretending it wasn't happening.
Right. So and then
Admitting
2
it to
years.
myself, it took me 1 year of like, I realized what was going on, but I was hoping it would go away. But even in that time, I started really focusing on major health shifts, getting all these infusions. And then a year into that, as I was losing more hair, I felt like ultimately I was dying in my body. I felt like I was this 90-year-old woman trapped inside my body that was dying a very slow death, and I started to become scared because I couldn't live a normal life anymore. Living every day was becoming harder and harder for me. So it wasn't until going into my 4th year of having my implants that I decided I needed to start researching a doctor. I researched like 3 or 4 of the top surgeons in the country that specialized in the type of explant that I needed, and it took me a year to decide which doctor I was going to have. So it was at the end of the 4th year I finally went to him. We scheduled my explant, and that wasn't until another 9 months that I could actually get in and have it done.
Oh wow, was he that booked up?
Yeah.
He was that booked up.
So he's actually one of the top surgeons
Wow.
in the country for this specific procedure that I needed. So it's not just go in and have them removed. I needed a very specific procedure called either an en bloc or a capsulectomy. So when doctors go in and just remove the implant, there is a ton of scar tissue that has formed around that implant, and most doctors will tell you, you don't need to take that out, your body will dissolve it, it'll go away. That's totally untrue. It could actually make you more sick by leaving it in, because you open it up and now everything that's collected inside of it has the ability to dump into the body. So a capsulectomy or an en bloc is a procedure where the en bloc is where they remove the entire implant with all the scar tissue still around it. Unfortunately, at my explant, they weren't able to do that because of how much damage there was internally. So
Is that similar to the video that I sent to you,
I think so.
where it showed just the implant encapsulated
And the scar tissue.
in the scar tissue,
So that's
and
an
the
en
whole
bloc.
thing was removed, and then they kind of sliced it
Mhm.
open, and it was like this gooey mess.
Right. So her implant ruptured. Mine did not. Mine were 5 years old, but they were leaking, which I had no idea. So we couldn't
Wow.
do the en bloc on mine just because of how much tissue damage was inside, but we did a capsulectomy, meaning that even though it didn't come out in one piece, they were able to remove the entire capsule from inside my body. And that's when we found out that my implants were no longer as full as they were. It didn't have like an obvious leak, but there was a slow gel bleed out of the capsule.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So that's probably what was making you sick, yeah?
So a lot of people have this misconception that if you get silicone implants or saline implants, that the saline is a lot safer. The actual fact is that the entire shell for every person is silicone. So it doesn't really matter one way or the other. They do present different problems, but the shell is silicone itself. So
Right.
it's filled with a bunch of toxic ingredients that should never be inside of a human's body. I understand why a woman would want to get implants. I was one of them. And to be honest, if I didn't become ill and I didn't scar so bad, I probably would have been a happy woman with them, right? But that was not my case. And then in my research, I realized how not rare this is, how it actually is many women's outcome.
Wow, okay. Let's see, so how do you feel after we covered that one? If you could go back, well, before we go back to give yourself advice, is there anything else that you would want to share, just that you want to share with other women?
This is so cliche, but it's just learning how to love and accept yourself. Really. Because if I was able to love and accept myself, I would have never gone through any of the things that I went through. But maybe it was a journey I needed to go on. I lost not just the sensation of my breasts, but the tummy tuck made me lose every sensation of my stomach. And super embarrassing, but I lost 80% of my internal feeling to my vagina. I can barely feel my labia. I'm really lucky that I can feel my clitoris. Sorry if it's too much information. Essentially almost, I'm like 80% numb internally. So this has been like an ongoing healing journey for me, because not only do I have to heal from the fact that I did this to myself in hopes of feeling better, I undid everything that made me a woman. I I feel like I look like a scarred up, mangled mess. And then to top it off, I have such little feeling. I took away all my erogenous zones, everything. That would be my pleasure point. It's gone. I mean, to some degree I can still feel, but really, it's been a lot. So to say this took a toll is an understatement. Financially, I'm probably at least $40,000 in to plastic surgery. And that includes the original surgery, that includes all the medication and supplements and injections and everything that I did to try to feel better. That includes having them removed was another $10,000, and that's not even like transportation to and from. It's been a lot. It has been a lot. I mean, I'm super grateful for the doctor that I found and having them removed. The scars healed much better this time, and I still have scars. Aesthetically, it's much more pleasing to look at. I would say immediately upon waking up from my surgery, about 90% of my symptoms were gone. Wow. Just so people know. Now, wow. Healing is not straightforward. It's like a roller coaster. There are times when I feel a lot better and times where I feel like I regress a little bit. But overall, I feel so much better. I feel like I'm alive and that I can live and that I can live a long life, which is really, really different than what I was feeling while I had them in. I really felt like it's so difficult to explain, but I felt like I was dying within my body, and that just one day I wasn't going to be here anymore. And I was tired of living as that woman. And so really another part of why it took so long was the fear that removing them wouldn't actually make me better. So there was just so many things to think about. I was afraid of looking worse, right? Like, imagine, I was so afraid that what if my scars are even worse than the first time around? So yeah, it's been a journey.
It's a lot. Woo. Well, I just want to say thank you for sharing all of this, and I hope that you're okay with it, sharing it. If you could go back in time and give your younger self a piece of advice from your older self who has gone through this journey already, what would you tell her?
Love yourself more. Accept yourself just the way you are. I honestly did not have surgery for anyone else. I had it because I was uncomfortable with myself. So again, it's just a self-acceptance. The other thing is do your real research, do your due diligence. Reach out to support groups, because women like me do exist, and there are far more women than not that have had all my symptoms, a little less, a little more. The numbing that comes with it is far more common than not, and so for women that can essentially be brought to orgasm via just nipple stimulation, to have that wiped out and not feel anything, or the only sensation that came back for me is pain, that is not comfortable. Yeah, I mean, really take that into consideration. Talk to other women, talk to them. And again, I realize that other women have had positive experiences and that my experience doesn't speak for everybody. But don't live with the regrets that I have.
Okay.
Really.
Yeah.
There's a lot that I have had to accept. My scars, my financial journey, my health journey, my weight journey, and the journey back to just loving and accepting myself exactly the way I am today. That's been a big part of it.
Right. So the next question is, what have you learned and how have you grown from this experience? And I think part of it, you touched on part of it just now, but if you want to expand on that in any way.
Okay. Trust your initial instinct. My initial instinct was not to get implants because I had done the smallest bit of research on breast implant illness and I did not stick to my guns. That was huge. I think we all have intuition. We all have a gut feeling, and oftentimes we ignore it. And when we do, it has not such great impacts in our lives. And so I oftentimes tell my own children, stick to your gut intuition or listen to yourself. And so that's my biggest thing, is learning how to truly listen to myself, learning how to truly listen to my own intuition and my gut instincts, because they do not lie. We lie to ourselves, but our intuition does not.
That's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful lesson to learn, because each of us has our own intuition and nobody else around us, even if they think things could be beneficial for us, they don't know us.
Right.
Only you know you.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can love yourself enough and trust yourself enough, you can follow your own soul's guidance, and you can skirt these detrimental situations.
For sure.
Well, okay. That I don't think that was too much. It is a lot. That's a lot of layers.
Yeah.
Like you're saying you went in so many different directions, but like literally, like that's how things are. Nothing is really linear.
No.
And I didn't realize you had like a whole thing done. I just thought it was breast implants.
Girl, forgiving myself has been the biggest part of this, for destroying me. It is so embarrassing to be with your partner and not be able to feel. You know what I mean? It's.
That's hard. I can't even imagine.
I'd never in my life did I even think like that would be a part of having plastic surgery.
Right? That probably never even came into your thinking.
No, it wasn't even like a warning. Like nobody said, by the way, like your vagina will be numb. Like internally, externally.
Because if you had that information, what would that have changed your?
I would hope so. Let's
right?
be real, like, right? If I had all this information, I don't really know what I would have done with it beforehand. But I hope I would have been smart enough to like take some of it and think that maybe I don't need all this work. Maybe it would have been smart for me to also look in like alternative ways to make my breasts look better, or do something with my skin. Like I discovered fascia blasting or like fascia work afterwards, and I didn't realize like what a difference that could make. Maybe I would have been happy with my skin if I took the time to actually work on my body. And I don't mean weight loss or working out, because at that time I had gone from like 200 pounds to maybe like 130, 135, and I'm 5'6", and that is like super skinny for my body structure and type. And again, like the skinnier I got, the worse the skin got, and that's what was making me like I'm trying to make myself better. So when people were like, "Oh, but you look so good, you don't need surgery," I was like, "Well, you have no idea what the hell I look like naked." Right? And how uncomfortable I am with myself because of how much I bend over. Like I got 8 inches of skin hanging off of me.
Wow.
So I don't know. I would hope that if I was talking to myself before I got the surgery, I would listen to myself. I don't know if that's true though or not. Maybe I needed to do this. Maybe I needed to go on it, and try to learn how to not live with like the regrets that I have. Yeah.
That's a lot. So where, like, if you could put your healing on a scale of 1 to 10, where do you think you are in that journey?
A good 8. Had you asked me this like 6 months ago? Somewhere around there, about 2 months after I had my explant. While I was physically starting to heal, emotionally, I took a nosedive, and I was really close to not wanting to be alive anymore. I couldn't accept any of the things that I had done and the financial stress this had put on us, me. I couldn't accept that. It changed my whole life. Really, there's not a part of it that it didn't affect. Right? Just a simple choice of like, let me get plastic surgery. It changed so much for me. And all of it has to do with self, like no one else, right? So you live with the choices that you made. It doesn't affect anyone else in the way that it affects you. So I was really struggling. So if you asked me a couple months ago, it would have been like a 1-0. But today I've done a lot of work, and I was really fortunate though. In September, I came across a woman named Allie who I thought that I was just on a weight loss journey post-op, but I realized through her I really needed to do like a lot of inner healing and inner work, and she was a big catalyst to me starting to view myself in a better light, because I swear I was so ready to like I wouldn't say I was suicidal, but I had 100% given up on me, and that affected me in my workplace, in my personal life, in my bedroom, in my relationship with my kids. I was like essentially afraid to go back to work. Like really, there was not a part of my life that this didn't affect one way or the other.
What were some of the things that you've done? I mean, because that's not a very long time to have that kind of jump in healing. What are some of the tools that you've been using to get yourself better, to facilitate this growth? What are some of the things that you're doing?
Allie had me do a lot of mindset work, and I think through this whole entire thing, I never allowed myself to discuss my feelings. And so even in writing, and I didn't hold myself back for the first time, I was writing so much to her and answering these questionnaires and being so honest, but then when I would read it, it was so sad. I didn't realize like how negatively I viewed myself. I just knew I wasn't feeling good, and that I was at a really low point, and I was just coming to the conclusion of admitting that I was at a really low point in my life. But maybe writing it all out was like a really cathartic experience, and she helped me guide myself, or she guided me to seeing a better version of myself and realizing I had so much more control over the way I think, over the way I act, over the way I feel, I don't know, I feel like I grew up. I feel like there's such a thing as earth angels, and I believe in God, I believe in a higher power, and I feel like God put her in my life at the time that I needed her, although I thought it was just strictly about a journey of like weight loss and working out. I'm super grateful that she was there to make me realize myself in a better way, and that was a catalyst to a lot of the healing that I've been experiencing and the journey that I've been on in the past few months.
Wow, that sounds like she's really shifted everything for you.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah, I believe people come into your lives for a reason, and then God put an earth angel for me in the form of her when I was giving up on myself the most.
Thank you, Allie. Thank you, Allie. We'll put
but
your
here
link
again, like
in the
here
notes
when
too.
you came in my life too, and you're allowing me to share this experience, which I am sure will continue to help me heal and grow. So
I hope so too.
I'm grateful.
That's good. So the last question I have for you is, what is the silver lining, if there is one?
The silver lining for me is at the end of the day, I've learned how to love myself again, and I realize how much more control and power that I have over myself in my life. I gave too much away to the way that I was feeling and the situation that I was in. I lost so much self-esteem due to the way that I looked after my surgery. I lost trust in myself. I lost belief in myself. And I'm finding that all over again and realizing that my situation can hopefully help other women. Not only am I trying to warn women and men that implants can harm or hurt or deteriorate your life. And again, I realize this is like a super individual choice, and not everybody suffers in the way that I did, but that there is a group of people willing to help you out there in the event that you have not healed well, whatever that might mean to you. And it changed the trajectory of my own skincare practice because I became obsessed with learning how to heal scars. And so that I hope that my journey can help others in that way too. So there are a lot of women that heal terribly post-operative. And so my journey is to help them. But even just trauma. A car accident can change your life. A dog bite could change your life. A slip and fall could change your life. A surgery, a medically necessary surgery could change your life with scars. And so that would be my silver lining, right? It helped me learn how to heal from so many different aspects of this, but that I could then turn around and help others because my entire career became how to heal scars. And I feel like that really has a bigger scope. It's not just the physical, but it's internal too.
Right.
So that would be my silver lining.
That's actually pretty amazing.
Thank you.
So you're a scar specialist.
Yes.
Nice. We'll put that link in the notes as well. What's the name of your company?
The Revel Studio, located in Gulfport, Florida. I was in New York, but soon enough I will have a New York and Florida location. So
nice. You're expanding.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a silver lining.
Thank you.
Nice. Well, thank you for telling your story and coming here. Is there anything you want to add before we say goodbye?
Yeah. Do your research on your plastic surgeon. I would be happy to share the surgeon that I had to help remove what were toxic shitbags in my body. And I will provide the information in regards to the online community of women that support each other in regards to breast implant illness.
Nice.
That's it. But thank you. Thank you for doing this and giving women a voice and the opportunity to share themselves.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're a most amazing woman.
Thank you.
You're a most amazing woman.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for joining us. See you next time.